Welcome to worship from Venora Unitarian Universalist Church for December 13th, 2020. This service will be posted to YouTube later in the week, and you may also find most of our worship services since August on the Venora Unitarian Universalist Church YouTube channel. Although we are currently not meeting in our building, the financial concerns of the church continue. You may send your regular pledges or any donations to the church address, 12333 155th Avenue, Hanska, Minnesota, 56041. An order of service for today's service was emailed in advance to people on our Grapevine mailing list. If you would like to be added to that list, please email the church office at norachurch, all one word, at sleepyitel.net. Our opening words this morning were written by Francis C. Anderson, and our chalice lighting words are an excerpt from a longer poem by Lynn Unger. Christmas has no right to burst upon us suddenly and loudly from afar, lighting up right where we are with nylon trees and a long life plastic star. It is a lonely road to Bethlehem that must be walked slowly and untalked, where no bright light or angel song intrudes ahead of cue to wrongly claim arrival of the dawn before the night is walked by each of us on through. Light fires that can be seen for miles, that dance and spark and warm the frozen marrow. Set lamps in the windows. Declare your presence, your loyalties, the truth for which you do not expect to have to die. Our hymn by pianist Sally Hanson, Rock of Ages. It's time now for our story, and you don't have to come to the front pew in order to see the pictures. Our story is called The Christmas Magic, and it's written by Lauren Thompson with pictures by John J. Muth. In the far north, where the reindeer are, there is a snug little house with a bright red door, and in that house lives Santa Claus. Every year, just when the nights are longest and the stars shine brightest, Santa feels a tingling in his whiskers. Then he knows that the Christmas magic will soon be here. First, Santa gathers the reindeer from the sparkling fields of snow. "Come along home," he calls. "The magic will be here soon." In the cozy barn, Santa brushes the burrs from the reindeer's shaggy coats and treats them to parsnips and berries. Then he swings open a creaky old door that has been closed since Christmas last. Behind the door waits the big red sleigh. Santa rubs the rounded sides and the sleigh softly gleams. Then Santa lifts the harness from its hook and polishes the bells till they jingle together brightly. The reindeer raise their heads when they hear the music of the bells. Is the magic here? No, not yet, Santa tells them. It's not here yet. Inside his snug little house, Santa oils his old black boots with care. He darns the holes in his thickest wool socks. He combs his curly white beard and gives his mustache a trim. Then Santa climbs the creaking staircase to a room at the top of the house. This is the room where all the toys are. Toys of every kind. And here, too, Santa keeps a thickly bound book, and the names of all the children are written in this book. Santa runs his fingertips down the crinkling pages. One by one, he reads each child's name aloud and smiles. For Santa loves them all, and he knows what each child at heart wants most. Then he chooses a certain toy and tucks it into his creased leather sack. And always the magic draws closer. When every gift has been chosen and the pack is nearly overflowing, Santa closes up the bundle tight. All is ready. Then, this deep winter night, the stars begin to shine more brightly than ever, till they fill the night sky with their flaming light. Now, in their harnesses, the reindeers paw at the snow. They know the magic is near, very near. Santa knows too. He gazes up at the brilliant, numberless stars, and he thinks of all the children and how he loves them so. Suddenly, a warm tingling spreads from his whiskers to his soles. And around him the night begins to thrum with the magic, the kind of magic that makes reindeer fly. With a shake of the reins, Santa calls to his team, "Hi, let's be off." The reindeer pull hard at the harness and the bells begin to jingle. Soon the sleigh is speeding across the snow, and all at once Santa and the reindeer are climbing steeply through the air. Santa sees his little house glowing far below. The stars light the way above. The Christmas magic is here at last. It has come at last, as it always has and always will. Joy and woe were woven fine, wrote William Blake. And in this we rightly know, safely through the world we go. Because we live daily the truth in the poet's words, each time we gather to worship, whether in the church or this way through cyberspace, we pause to bring to the embrace of this community our joys and our sorrows. You may type your joys and sorrows into the chat or simply hold them in your attention. We're thinking with sorrow this morning of Cindy, one of Bev Wellman's best friends, who died from COVID this past week. We're thinking with concern also of Lee and Lynn Schmidt of this congregation, who both are down at home with COVID this week. And we think of all the joys and sorrows that are unspoken, but held dear to each of our hearts as we enter a spirit of meditation. Holy Mystery, Spirit of life and of love, we know you this season as light and darkness, music and silence, activity and stillness, and we invite your intricate blessings upon our lives. Bless us this week with the love of family and friends and this faith community. And bless us with growing awareness of our oneness with strangers near at hand and around the world. Bless us this week with a sense of wonder at the miracles retold of old and the miracles lived every day. And bless us with the belief that the miracles we neither recognize nor even witness are miracles nevertheless, both in the lives of people we might never encounter and in the lives of people who share our days and our nights. Bless us this week with comfort in our sorrows, acceptance in our imperfection, healing in our brokenness, forgiveness in our falling short, and with joy in our triumphs. Amen. Our first reading this morning from late Unitarian Universalist minister Ed Searle, Already Turning. Curiously, though we have entered the darkest, coldest, dreariest of seasons, already that season is turning for us. For like a seed in the iron-cold earth, our hope is alive. That is what gives us courage and inspiration to light candles and decorate trees and sing carols of peace and goodwill. The spirit of hope when all seems to conspire against it. And our second reading, Dust of Snow by Robert Frost. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I rued. Here end the readings.
In the lonely midnight on the wintry hill, shepherds heard the angels singing peace, goodwill. Listen, all you weary, to the angels' song. Unto you the tidings of great joy belong. Though in David's city angels sing no more, love makes angel music on earth's farthest shore. Though no heavenly glory meet your wondering eyes, love can make your dwelling bright as paradise. Though the child of Mary heralded on high, in his manger cradle may no longer lie, love will reign forever, though the proud world scorn. If you truly seek peace, Christ for you is born.
Are you all decorated for the holidays? Inside your home, on the roof or around the windows and in the yard? Perhaps you decorated earlier than usual to take advantage of the warm weather in which to work outside. Or perhaps earlier than usual because such an impossible year needs all the cheer we can offer ourselves and others. Or perhaps your decorating activities are right on your traditional schedule, whether that means the finishing touches were complete 3 weeks ago, or decorating is now in process, or no decorating has begun yet, or decorating is neither planned nor likely to happen at all. For several decades now at least, the Christmas season has in many quarters begun on the day following Thanksgiving, driven largely, of course, by retailers who want to expand the shopping season as much as possible, and leading to some predictable pushback of the "bah, humbug, it isn't Christmas yet" variety. This year, however, lots of folks are saying early and often when it comes to decorating, baking, music, cheesy movies. Even some traditional Christian clergy types who ordinarily adhere to a much stricter Advent, 12 days of Christmas beginning on December 25th, Epiphany delineation. Still, some voices insist it isn't Christmas yet. One of those voices crying, "Not yet," is mine, though it isn't exactly saying it's not Christmas yet. Joy is the theme for the third Sunday of Advent today. The pink candle is lit on the wreath, a usually welcome break from the somber purple candles. But at the thought of joy, my spirit cries out, "Not yet. Not yet. It is too soon for joy." Set aside for a moment Christmas, still 12 days away, along with the joy we expect from it. Let's talk instead, again, about the coronavirus. Even with Friday night's FDA approval of Pfizer's vaccine, the first doses going to healthcare workers and residents of long-term care facilities, the first doses are a couple weeks away. For most of us, the vaccine is 4, 5, even 6 months away. Every headline I read, every story I hear that starts with, "There's good news today on the coronavirus front," makes me cringe and shout silently, "Not yet!" Not yet can we believe the worst is over. Not yet can we let our guards down. Not yet can we celebrate the very real joy that will come when we can abandon our masks and hug one another. 300,000 people have died already in the United States alone. 4,360 in Minnesota. Thousands more will die before we are sufficiently vaccinated to stop the spread of the virus. And I am desperately afraid, based on our demonstrated inability and unwillingness to adhere to basic and very simple public health safety protocols, I am desperately afraid that the number of people who will die during the time it takes for most of us to receive 2 doses of vaccine, that number of dead will needlessly multiply 10, 20, even 100 times if we start treating the approval of the vaccine as the end of the danger. I understand that public health officials and government officials are weary of giving us bad news and bleak predictions. I understand wanting to reassure a public that they have repeatedly warned for almost a year now, as a means of assuaging in some small way the mental and emotional toll that increases every day. I imagine it is even balm to their mental and emotional health, all those health commissioners and public health directors and governors, to speak words of hope instead. And still it scares me. I want the primary message, the loudest message, the front and center message still to be, stay at home, wear your masks properly, keep your distance. And if they must talk of the good news of the vaccine, I want it to sound like this: stay at home, wear your mask properly, keep your distance so that you live long enough to be vaccinated. And oh, by the way, yeah, it's coming to a clinic near you sometime in the spring, probably. Before I return to the joy of the third Sunday of Advent, I've been saying not yet to another pending source of joy, too. Alongside possible timelines for vaccinations and countdowns to Christmas, I, and perhaps you, have been seeing another kind of countdown in recent days. The countdown to Inauguration Day next year. In fact, remember when I said last week that if you buy 3 post-Christmas discount Advent calendars and open a door a week for 3 months, you'll get you to the neighborhood of the spring equinox? Well, I got that idea from a Facebook meme that said a single post-Christmas discount Advent calendar opened a door a day could serve as a countdown to Inauguration Day. Looking at pictures of protests and counting the number of lawsuits, we could be fooled into thinking there is no joy to be had at all with the results of the recent election and the approach of January 20th, 2021. But that's a deliberate illusion cast by the very people who created the circumstances that led to the election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. There is, from my perspective, much to be joyful about as the day approaches when no longer will the president of our country lie with impunity and attempt to gaslight us all into believing he speaks the truth. No longer will the president of our country take glee from being cruel. No longer will the president of our country place power and profit for himself and his friends above all else. No longer will the vice president of our country seek to curtail reproductive freedom, assert that women should not serve in the military, and imply through their own personal rules of conduct that women are inherently, seductively, powerfully dangerous to men's honor. There is much to be joyful about in the prospect of a new administration, and I will no doubt pop the cork on a bottle of champagne on Inauguration Day. But none of that quiets my not yet. The millions of postcards and texts and phone calls, the virtual rallies and the op-ed pieces, the campaign signs that were replaced every time they were stolen or defaced, the 81 million votes, all that was just the prep work. Now the real work begins. For all the folks President-elect Biden is putting into place in his cabinet and his White House, and for us. Undoing the damage and the cruelty and the lies of the outgoing administration is going to require us to support policies publicly to neighbors and family members who disagree, and to make certain our representatives support them too. It's going to require us to go back to rallies and protests, to vote in every election that comes along, not just the big ones, to put our money where our hearts are, and on and on. It's too soon for joy, because almost none of the relief for the least of these, our siblings, that the new administration may make reality, almost none of it will be felt immediately. And even once we set to rights the harm of the past 4 years, to the extent that that is possible with a divided and deadlocked Congress, even then we'll still have a long way to go, because society was broken and unfair and rigged against the poor and marginalized and people of color and queer folks long before the 45th president took office. This is not yet time for celebration. But here we are, in Advent, the Advent of all Advents, as I said last week, waiting for something big. And tradition tells us that on this third Sunday of the season, we celebrate joy. Joy, though Christmas is not yet here. Joy, though the birth is still to come. And in the end, I am willing to be persuaded to ask, who am I to deny joy when it appears? There is wisdom in observing joy before the big event and then resuming the wait. Notice that it's not the fourth Sunday. We don't build steadily and irrevocably toward joy. We light a single pink candle and then next week back to purple again. Now, in the sloppy way of too many Unitarian Universalist ministers, my understanding of the theology and practice of Advent is patchy and probably shallow, layered with meaning I make rather than the meaning of a faith that has observed the season over the centuries. But there you go. In a year like this, it's the best I have to offer. And the meaning I make of this third Sunday theme is this: joy happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen, even when it is Christmas. We've probably all had years like that. Years when a too recent death or a pending death, a layoff, terminal disease, divorce, disaster, pregnancy loss, or other tragedy robs this season of all joy. But it also happens the other way. Joy happens whether or not it is Christmas, whether or not people are still dying from coronavirus or withering from pandemic-induced isolation, whether or not the next president and vice president are yet inaugurated or their hard work begun, whether or not relief is in sight for those who have suffered for too long under systemic racism and the inequities of free market capitalism, joy happens and is even said to be a form of resistance. One of the fiercest anti-racist, anti-oppression advocates I know has been posting videos of her co-parent and their infant on TikTok lately, and luckily also on Facebook, because I'm not on TikTok. She posts them under the hashtag Boomer Butches and Babies Dance Hour. Unapologetic expressions of pure joy and the fight for a new and glorious morning all rolled into one. Another colleague posted a quieter joy, not unlike Robert Frost's crow-bestowed dusting of snow, the sighting of a red hawk soon after his father's death. Joy happens, and it's real. And it doesn't invalidate the mess and the pain and the fear we're dwelling deep within right now. And it doesn't mean we've turned away from the work of getting ourselves and our neighbors out of the mess and the pain and the fear. It simply is. So who are we to turn away from joy? A sunset like none we've ever seen, a dog racing with abandon, a letter from a grandchild, the memories beckoned by a song, a familiar voice saying our name with love, the taste of a holiday treat, a reconciliation despite or perhaps made possible by social distance, impromptu sing-alongs with the grocery bagger, the sound of unrestrained laughter. Who are we to deny or suppress or not recognize joy when it comes into our lives? Do we know better than whatever mysterious and holy forces conspire to bring occasions for joy? Do we believe ourselves so powerful as to be able to control the progression of joy or sorrow, disappointment, loneliness or terror, courage, beauty, or liberation through our lives? To arrange for them to appear in season or at times convenient to us? When has life ever worked that way? It is good that tradition calls forth joy in the middle of Advent, in the midst of waiting for the big day. The pink candle teaches us, reminds us year after year that God's seasons are not our seasons. Yes, frost could have resisted the change in mood the dusting of snow offered, but he was wise enough or surprised enough to take it as it came. Yes, we can sometimes summon or resist beauty and courage, doubt or disappointment. It is a sign of spiritual vitality to do so at times. But in the paradoxical way of almost all matters of the spirit, it is also a sign of spiritual vitality and deep faith to practice acceptance, to welcome, in this instance, joy fully and gratefully, when all the more logical and analytic and experience-bound parts of our being are shouting, "Not yet! Now is not the time for joy." Our opening words this morning didn't get it quite right, did they? The road to Bethlehem, the road to one of the birthplaces of life and hope, needn't be either sudden, loud, and garishly lit by a long life plastic star, or lonely, plodding, absent conversation. The path to the birth of life and hope is always both, abrupt and out of season, and slowly and in the fullness of time, solitary and communal, silent and full of stories, song, encouragement, and distractions. And despite all our cautious defenses, joy will find us whenever and wherever we are on that path. Like the magic of Christmas, it always has, and it always will. Amen.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room.
And heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the earth, the Savior reigns. Let all their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills, and plains repeat the sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy.
He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove
The glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love.
Will you join me now in reciting the words for extinguishing our chalice? The flame has been doused, but the fire of our community still burns. In this moment, we become beacons on the prairie, bearers of light and warmth, until we gather again to rekindle our communal chalice. In the midst of this season, when so much is not yet, may a moment come bearing joy your way. May you bid it welcome with your embrace, and thus may you take up again the task of making not yet one day shorter. Amen.